We're finding some breaking news. President Trump signing an executive order to shut down the Department of Education.
The president says he's returning education back to the states, and we have team coverage tonight. Henry Graff following the potential impacts on Virginia's schools. But we're starting with Riley Wyatt in the First Alert Center with what this order does and does not do.
Well, Jasmine, Franklin, here's the deal. President Trump can't dissolve the Education Department on his own. That will take an act of Congress. And to put it simply, he simply doesn't have the votes. So the executive order he signed today seeks to rapidly gut the department as much as legally possible without the approval of Congress. The order directs the Education Secretary, Linda McMahon, to figure out the details within 90 days. Republicans have toyed with the notion of closing the Department of Education for decades. It argues that it wastes taxpayer money and allows the federal government too much influence in decision making.
And we have to get our children educated. We're not doing well with the world of education in this country, and we haven't for a long time.
The White House saying ahead of today's signing, the move will make the department much smaller than it is today, but it will continue managing federal student loans and Pell Grants. They also say the order will not affect programs for low-income students or children with special needs. Franklin?
Thank you so much. Across Virginia, heated debate over whether closing the Department of Education will help or hurt Virginia schools. Henry Graff continues our team coverage.
Good riddance is the feeling among many Virginia Republicans to a dismantling of the federal education department. They're not worried about a loss in federal dollars.
That money that Virginia already gets is going to be sent to us as a block grant instead of with a bunch of red tape and strings attached from the federal government.
State Senator Glenn Sturdivant says in its 45 years of existence, the DOE has been more of a waste than anything else.
You know, as we've spent $1 trillion during the lifetime of the federal Department of Education, and scores and outcomes have really only consistently declined, we got to do something different.
But Democrats argue gutting the department will inevitably mean cuts to the program students and teachers rely on.
These cuts are going to impact every child's ability to have access to what they need, including having their civil rights protected, especially if they're disabled.
Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan also says higher education could suffer too if there are cuts to financial aid and Pell Grants. She also says states are already in the driver's seat when it comes to what happens inside the classroom.
States already do that. The states control what is taught in school. Our local governments have control over the day-to-day running of the school. But where the federal government steps in is making sure civil rights are upheld and that the gaps are met.
In recent years, Virginia schools receiving roughly 11% of their funding from the federal government. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin invited to that signing but had to decline, citing a scheduling conflict. On your side in Richmond, I'm Henry Graff, 12 on your side.
And in the last half hour, Governor Glenn Youngkin threw his full support behind the president's action, saying, quote, Virginia is ready to take full responsibility for K-12 education. We welcome the federal government's shift of responsibility to the states.
We now know the